Content warning, emotional codependencies, talks of CSA, racism. I didn't just want to talk about my experience, I also wanted to include Ghost's public actions. I feel that people are afraid to call them out, fearing they may be labeled as parasocial or ableist. While there are impersonator Blue Sky accounts, the official one was Ghost and Pal's Blue Sky Social, and then 2 sources. And then it shows a screenshot of Ghost's community post on YouTube saying, "I never want to look at Twitter ever again, so I'm on Blue Sky now. There's trustful art over there, go, go, go." And then a link to the official account. I also wanted to add a small section about the whole distortionist situation. I'm woefully uneducated on it, as this happened almost a decade ago and not much screenshot proof still exists. Here's the link to Umbratic Forest's document on it. Parasociality, too much information, trauma dumping. Ghost has been extremely candid about their CSA. However, this is something they have criticized in the past. About adding a content warning to a future song, Ghost replied, "Oh no, I definitely plan on that." Redacted. Ghost says back when Green was still in the friend group, he would post stuff in the venting channel like trigger warning for pedophilia, and then graphically describe memories of his abuse, when the standard for our friend group was that when you say trigger warning pedophilia, you're going to be venting about your feelings, or venting about someone in the community being outed. So like, I'm familiar with how it feels to be warned for something generic, and then getting the worst possible case of it instead, Lamau. They would detail their CSA and other trauma to an audience of young teenagers. I've redacted the most graphic and left out some other posts for Ghost's privacy, but note this happened multiple times. Ghost says, "But I deserve this more than my dad did, because he didn't exactly CSA me, as it's commonly known as, but he literally put me on the brink of death, and my mom saved me from that. I couldn't breathe, and I was losing consciousness." Anyways, Ghost and Pals after hours. This shit is straight ass. He was smiling as he was putting me to death, by the way. Elementary school. My mother planned some roleplay with him that would help correct his mistake by displaying an authentic apology to me, which he agreed to. Come time to roleplay, and my dad mocks the concept of bodily consent to my face. Trigger warning CSA, and then a bunch of redacted information. I mean, like, cyberstalking was involved. I developed this ugly form of empathy towards him, where the only thing I wanted was for his music career to go somewhere. He admitted to being jealous of mine, so I'm like, fine. No, that's fine. There's some sort of peace within that. Anyways, F Team 6 times 111 for abandoning me as my mother was actively dying. Keep your eyes peeled. Redacted. Leaked info. Be a banger. Yes, it will. Oh, yes, it will. Who's a good puppy boy? It's me, you effing whore. Go kill someone your own size. Oh wait, OMG, you already did. And then they say whore again. Somebody replied to the F Team 6 times 111 abandoning me and says, "Wait, so that's what happened? I'm genuinely sorry about that, Ghost. That sucks. I thought you guys disbanded because of conflict." Ghost says, "Silent conflict. We didn't want anyone to be put on public shame blast by the Ghost and Pals fandom. Victims in therapy type shit." Quote, "We didn't want anyone to be put on public shame blast, which is why they named the team and producer." Ghost says, "Every day I have to emotionally comfort and console my wife. My wife who worked so hard to defend me, taking a break from their asses when I said my alter was debating killing himself again. They are crying again as we speak, and you disrespect my mother. Oh, but my white guilt is the problem? Bitch, go prove reverse racism real if you're that effing bored. These poems concern internal matters only." Heart. A big key smash. Not really, because there's a robot upstairs, but that's gonna take a while too. Them bringing up their quote white guilt and quote reverse racism will be a pattern. They were posting in this thread for about an hour instead of doing what they were saying in the first post and comforting their partner. This is what I read earlier. The whole "my friends abandoned me" crying face thread. It left off at the "if the 'I'm sorry you wanted' has to be done publicly" vague post style, and then here, "I'm sorry, I hope you can trust that it's water under the bridge." Parentheses, "my tone sucks because I'm mad at myself too. Doing it this way makes me feel like I have to tone translate for thousands of strangers on the internet," which, like, I mean, yeah. I don't care about that, but surely you understand. Inappropriate interactions with minors. TikTok original poster in the screenshot is 14 years old. The original TikTok says, "Oh god, I love Ghost. I love him so much. I love his femboy version. I wish someday will marry us. I don't want to share you, my sweet baby. You're mine, I promise." Caption, "I am getting gay about this. Heh. Hashtag Ghost." Somebody posted a screenshot of the TikTok, said, "They also made this. It's deadass so weird. Hashtag Ghost and Pals. Hashtag GNP. Hashtag Yume shipping." And then Ghost reblogged it, said, "This is awesome. OP and I are getting married right now, actually," regarding the original poster of the TikTok. And then they said, "Y'all are missing out." People in the replies told Ghost how weird this is and that OP is a minor. Somebody replied to "y'all are missing out" with, "No, I don't think we are. You're almost 30. You should know better than to joke about things like this, especially when you know that the majority of your fanbase are minors." Somebody else said, "What's so terrible that could happen to the child from a simple joke? Stop being so dramatic, lol." Another person says, "We know this is a joke, but it's still weird and irresponsible interacting like this with a 15-year-old. It's pretty obvious they're a kid too. No hate." Another person says, "Ghost, we love you, but that's kind of weird." The person that says, "I don't think we're missing out," says, "Ghost, they're 14. Another person says, quote, "That's weird to joke about. They're a kid." End quote. I guess we normalize fans sexualizing their favorite artists now. Ghost has a long history of getting sexualized by fans. The least they can do is joke about it. Joking about marriage does not equal pedophilia. Messiah, Jesus effing Christ. Ghost never deleted the tweets and said this in response. In regards to this is awesome. OP and I are getting married right now, actually. They say, this is a joke under the context. I'm kind of sick of people spotlighting mentally ill teenagers on the public internet for the purpose of mocking their maladaptive experiences with attachment, assuming that it harms me in some way. That's all it is. Sorry for the miscommunication. Quote, sick of people spotlighting mentally ill teenagers. End quote. So they decided to spotlight a mentally ill teenager and encourage the maladaptive parasocial attachment. Strange comments. Racism and dog whistles. Ghost says, my mom died. My mom died. This song is about the fact that my mother died. I'm saying these things for myself and myself only. I'm hyping myself up, as the girlies say it. So shut up. Finish mixing. Nobody will care. Nobody will care. Okay, confession of sin. I studied black gospel choir for the tuning on this whip I'm working on, so it will reek of white guilt. Please forgive me. I'm so sorry, and I'm posting this shit for my own psychosomatic purposes. Oh my lord. I learned too much about anti-racism. Oh my goodness. This is bad. Then a different post says, DID is just the kind of shit natives were on about. If we want to live on American soil, then we ought to get used to it. Esoteric talking points or whatever. Another post, confessional posting, my dad's a jazz musician who, in his time, was very well accepted by his black peers. My mom was a little bigoted from my POV, but she grew up in rural Indiana. She was open-minded to changing her views, though. I was raised Protestant Christian. They said, the church my parents both worked at describes themselves as a generationally diverse group of people on their website. When I was born and one of my dad's black friends saw me for the first time, he said, oh, she's got cysta lip. Of course, I went on to get bullied in elementary school for having full lips. I also went on to get bullied much more lightly for having a nose that's quote-quote kinda ugly. My grandma, whose parents were first-gen Polish immigrants, had a quote-quote beak nose, as the elusive anti-Semitic they call it. Raised in the ways I was, my middle school friends introduced me to LGBT stuff for the first time. Abused by the ways I was, I generally thought that being raised Christian meant I was inherently homophobic. So I confessed to the local anime conventions forums that I was homophobic in the tiniest font possible, and I led those people on about it. Lol. I also confessed to some misunderstood fat phobia, but I immediately internalized the corrections the other posters gave me and moved on. Anyways, this has been Cycle Breaking with your host, Ghost, featuring their persecutor, and I don't know what the point of all of this is. It's cycle breaking, remember? Yeah, sorry. And then there's a screenshot of one of their songs called I'm Being Gang Stalked by an Elite Cabal of Metaphors, and then it shares the exact definition of cabal. Etymology. The term cabal is derived from Kabbalah, a word that has numerous spelling variations, the Jewish mystical interpretation of the Hebrew scripture. In Hebrew, it means received doctrine or tradition, while in European culture, Christian Kabbalah, Hermetic Kabbalah, it became associated with a cult doctrine or a secret. Conspiratorial discourse. Followers of the QAnon conspiracy use the cabal to refer to what is perceived as a secret worldwide elite organization who, according to proponents, wish to undermine democracy and freedom and implement their own globalist agendas. Some anti-government movements in Australia, particularly those that emerged during Canberra's response to the pandemic, that Scott Morrison's secret ministerial, don't know if I'm saying that right, appointments were evidence of what they said was happening all along, a secret cabal. The term is sometimes employed as an anti-Semitic dog whistle due to its evocation of centuries-old anti-Semitic tropes. And then it goes back to Blue Sky. Somebody says, I wonder why people still love Russian-themed stuff. I love Ghost's music so much, and I've been a fan for a really long time, but it's kind of uncomfortable for me to keep seeing this. Ghost replies and says, just so you know, they're hiding in your walls, and they're utilizing coordinated breathing as a psychic attack to deliver you subliminal messages via an audible surround sound, Morse code. And then they sent this giant screenshot. All art is political. I'm a white, disabled queer from America. Before I started posting V-synth music, I didn't have anything IRL to call home, except for small-town white people who barely knew I existed. I out here rocking a high school diploma because disability is a bitch, and I'm not paying tens of thousands of dollars for another 4-year-long suicide bait. My ancestors immigrated here from Poland shortly before World War II started, and the only story I have about the extended family we left behind is that they stopped replying to my grandma's letters around the same time Nazis invaded the area they lived in. Last I heard, my family hadn't found their names on any lists of people killed during the Holocaust, so I have no idea if they survived or not. From my chronically online no-degree loser POV, Russia looks like this to me. The government is evil and its supporters/defenders are propaganda blind, no discussion needed. Growing up, I remember heavier cautionary advice being given to the idea of traveling there compared to other European countries. I feel like Slavic art in general has this we're all collectively losing it right now gene that I recognize in white America's 1950s. Soviet-era apartment buildings have always been a common sight with liminal space aesthetics. I think people are drawn to them because they hit this horror constellation that looks like industrial takeover, going to political neglect, going to the cold abrasive security of cement, going to wanting a little cubby to hide in, going to megalophobic structures that look like computer parts, going to the windows make them look almost trypophobic, going to packaging these themes in a "this is where home is" sentiment. I was a preteen in the early 2010s, and in Soviet Russia, the opposite of reality is true was one of the first viral internet memes back when they all looked like radial color stripes with some random photo cut out in the middle. Another big one was that one gif of Russia from Natalia skydiving without a parachute going with vodka. My experience with oppression is dominated by ableism, so much so that I don't feel particularly compelled to write about queerphobic experiences. I think Russian inspiration comes through my music at the intersection of Slavic heritage and white privilege as the Slavic country that won a chance to gaslight the world's narrative. As an oppressive system, ableism had to get real good at staying quiet because it's a universal domination. I view it as the nuts and screws of the bigotry machine. You barely notice them, but the machine couldn't even take shape without them, and humanoid robots without visible screws are hallmarks of the modern-day uncanny valley. As short and simple as I can put it, Trustfall is about the specific genre of ableism I faced in the vsynth community as an undiagnosed DID system. Specifically, it's the jarringly polar idolized state where you are God and we worship you with every post we make, and your music directly harms us because it encourages systemic violence against us and we expect accountability for the damage you're inflicting, are both coming with urgency from the same demographic. Meanwhile, and rather unfortunately, my diagnosis means that my parents raised my brain to do tricks and spins as a child, so my works have always been the product of an imaginary family screaming and crying together in relative isolation. What else is a story? People with DID are doing the same thing. Having a fandom's worth of internalized ableism projected onto my lap like that, in the condition I was in when it started, sent me into a dissociative state that would have been misdiagnosed as schizophrenia if I hadn't kept my mouth shut about it before finding a trauma-informed therapist. My fans are ableist in the same way that I'm racist for being white, in the same way that Russia's is irredeemable media right now. Quote, my fans are ableist in the same way that I'm racist for being white, in the same way that Russia's irredeemable media right now. Covetous trigger warnings. Dismissal of survivors. Ghost released a song called Covetous, which featured graphic lyrics about CSA. People were upset over the lack of warning, especially when this is something Ghost has provided for in the past. This was Ghost's response, running over to Blue Sky with like a soldier hurling himself behind a wall of concrete rubble to evade the rain of ammo. The added trigger warning to covetous stuff is so scarily entertaining to me because I've progressed to a point where accommodating in-progress survivors gives me conversion disorder flare-up. How strange it is to be anything at all. I felt effing horrible watching people complain about it, but through the experience of that, I'm getting better at noticing the signs of a full-body shutdown ahead of time. Somebody said, Ghost, it's not that hard to add a trigger warning of themes of CSA, at least on the title of the video. This is stupid, you're being immature. Ghost replies, it is when your body cannot move and you fall asleep at the thought of doing something. I'm not going to linger on this much longer, thank you for your understanding. Unsubscribe if you have to. I know that my choices are for the specific intent of getting myself into a better place where things can be better, but I can't ever guarantee a time frame that will meet your expectations. End screenshot. You have all of this energy to make an entire PV and make multiple threads on Blue Sky about it, but not enough energy to type 4 letters. They initially added a trigger warning to the description, but then removed it, along with uploading an animatic similarly with no warnings. Covetous and the animatic have both since been deleted as of March 19th. Somebody commented, delete and upload with a trigger warning, please. Ghost replied, trigger warning, how it feels to experience what I wrote the song about. And then pinned by Ghost, Ghost says, this is your advance notice warning. My work won't return to anything more delicately handled than this. You guys, the fan base I have as of writing this, have more or less followed me for work that protects denial mechanisms. Mine turned into a psychosomatic disability that only gets worse the more I consider other people's feelings in the matter. I wish I could express some form of condolence for not putting a trigger warning on this, but I just got done driving myself back into psychosis getting doctors to rule out a sleep disorder. Another year of psychosis down the hatch over a single effing PSG, and I didn't even get medication for insomnia out of it. Call my shit ableist again and you're going to hell. Or you can pardon yourself by drinking until the flashbacks are minimized down to only screaming and vomiting. Your choice. Heart. And then other comments by Ghost and Covetous. Finally getting around to reading Sayono Uta, but it hits oddly specifically close enough to home that I'm microdosing that thing. Sayono Uta is a known Lolicon game depicting the sexualization and assault of children. Many of their followers were minors and they still chose to post about a dark adult game. And then all of those minors would search up Sayono Uta and find something that they should not find. Pastime. Ghost says, actually one more thing, sorry. Music is my only source of income, which in turn gets used to support Palestinian charities / GoFundMes. I'm not a proxy for your own support, I just wanted to make it clear listening to my music inherently supports Palestine, so adjust as you will. Also leaving really strong encouragement to look into stuff to the best of your ability before sharing. The retweet button makes it so easy to have an emotional reaction and share without thinking. But that Garfield image is legitimately true. You are not immune to propaganda. Also, do not regard me as a pinnacle of human generosity for this. I am being so serious right now. Anyone who gets so much as one stream about Ghost and Pals near these posts, your dad was right about you. Quote, your dad was right about you. Absolutely nonsensical response. They somehow make the suffering in Gaza about themselves. Mental health, anti-recovery, and ableism. Ghost says, I swear to effing God, therapy cannot always fix you. DID cannot be understood by anyone who does not have it, and I feel so much for anyone who is traumatized by therapy and psychiatry itself, or is inherently barred from easy access due to the factors within the system. Sometimes I feel like therapy took all the milestones that were supposed to be spread out across my life and crammed them into my first 30 years. Now what? Live. Duh. Duh. What does that entail? I don't know, enjoying anything you haven't done yet? But the internet already gave me those experiences. The real life world didn't enjoy me enough to hold my attention away from spoiler. I'm also rotating actual bullshit around in my mind and examining the topography this much because my first time with a genuinely good for me group of friends did some weird shit to me and forced those friends to cross paths with aforementioned actual bullshit before I knew what to do with it. So, narcissistic ass curse my dad gave me. Anyways, boy, go get back in your torture corn dungeon. Get. We're sad because we're trying to reach functional multiplicity, but there was a lot of internet drama, and there was that people with NPD aren't inherently abusive, actually, phase that happened while I was still living with a narcissistic abuser, and then Candle Queen happened, and then the call out posts, and now I have scary symptoms, and I get really sleepy when I try to write music. Once again, talking about narcissistic abuse, an ableist term against people with narcissistic personality disorder. If I have left anything out, please let me know on my Twitter. I'm trying to keep this contained to recent events. And that's where part 2 ends. Now we'll get to the resources that Enoch provided. I wanted to take this time to gather resources for mental and physical illnesses. I also wanted to compile the thread Carbon Monoxide made on the matter, so users off Twitter may benefit from this, even if it helps one person, or better yet, indirectly helps Ghost. And then it links Carbon's original thread. Beta blockers such as propanol, I'm gonna butcher all of these drug names, I'm so sorry. Beta blockers such as propanol can help massively decrease the levels of adrenaline and norepinephrine, the stress chemicals that cause your body to physically lock up and freeze during times of intense stress. Propranolol is shown to alleviate symptoms of CPTSD and hinder the consolidation plus reconciliation of traumatic memories. Side note, beta blockers are also prescribed for POTS, a disorder that releases adrenaline and norepinephrine and causes tachycardia, fatigue, and even syncope. And then a link. Aripiprazole is sometimes used as an off-label medication for ME/CFS due to the fact that it reduces brain inflammation. Adderall can heavily worsen symptoms of OCD and psychosis because Adderall increases levels of adrenaline and norepinephrine, plus it can create a dopamine imbalance in the frontal cortex, which is a core psychological feature of those who undergo psychosis and or have diagnosed psychotic disorders. For ADHD medication, Vyvanse is considered a more reliable and gentler option. Rather than providing your body with dextroamphetamine, the thing in Adderall that gives you energy, prodrug, meaning that it's the precursor to dextroamphetamine, so it works within the bounds of your natural metabolism so as to not overwhelm your body with stress hormone. Stellate ganglion block is a minimally invasive procedure where a syringe of anesthetic is injected into this bundle of nerves near your thyroid that modulates your panic responses, essentially soft resetting your nervous system. It has been shown to have a success rate of up to 70% in people with severe treatment-resistant PTSD and is also a valid treatment option for chronic neuropathic pain. The vagus nerve is a facial nerve that runs down the side of your neck, and it's responsible for modulating your sympathetic nervous system. The vagus nerve stimulation therapy has been shown to provide relief for not only those with treatment-resistant PTSD, but also people with POTS, MCAS, EDS, excessive daytime sleepiness, and ME/CFS. However, none of these are magical cure-alls for mental illness. They serve as tools to remove blocks that prevent you from going forward with PTSD recovery, but that you need to do the hard work of unpacking all your trauma. In order to maximize the effectiveness of any of these solutions, you need to be in active trauma therapy. Things like EDMR and DBT are long-term, evidence-based therapeutic commitments. They will not work if you quit halfway through, and in the case of EDMR, it can be harmful. The text in the red was spoken by Yappy VU underneath Carbon's original thread. And that wraps up the Google document. Like I said, I won't share my personal thoughts other than I certainly do not approve of anything that Ghost has proven to be done, or is accused of doing here, and some of the information really upset me, which is expected because it's a heavy subject. Sorry for the more serious video, just wanted to be that text-to-speech for anybody who doesn't have the time to read all of it. I know this took forever for me to read in general because it's a lot of writing, but I hope that at least more people can have easier access to it, and also to do with the vsynth community, which I am in. I will link both of the documents and Carbon's thread in the description, and make sure to check out the resources that are provided if you need them. Other than that, have a good day. Bye.